As we turn to the word of the Lord, please pray with me. Lord, as we have sung, we love you. And we pray that in our songs, the reality would also be in our life. That you would be our all. For you are better than anything we can find on this earth. So knowing you, following you, we come here together to worship. We pray that your word would illumine our hearts and our minds and our spirits to live for you with courage and with strength today and the days to come. To you alone be all honor and glory. In your name. Amen. So I don't know how many of you remember, but the other week we were supposed to do communion, and I said, I messed up, and I didn't have the communion bread. I didn't have what we needed here. And then I went to get the communion bread. Well, locally, we don't have a Christian bookstore anymore. And so I did what I normally do, what I think anybody else would do here. I went to Amazon, because that's where you go get things, right? I love Amazon because you click on it, and it shows up at your door within 48 hours. Sometimes it shows up even faster. It amazes me how fast things can get to your door. And if you're in a bigger city, you can have it at your door in some places within 2 hours. I mean, think about that. But not communion bread. No, I went there to order communion bread from all the places, not just Amazon. I looked at all the other places, and it was out of stock everywhere until January 31st. No delivery date till then. I guess they have to go bake a whole bunch. Something has, I don't know what it is, but every place has the same thing. And so it arrived, by the way, through Amazon this week. We'll have communion next week. But it's this idea of this instant need. I couldn't get the communion bread for the next week, and I'm so used to having it. I mean, anything that you think of, you need it, we can get it. You need it, we can do it. We can find it. If you need to think of a piece of information, what is the first thing you think of? Google it. Yeah, why not? And if you're not by a computer, you pull out your phone. You know, it's this instant thing that we can do and take care of anything we want, anytime we want, however we want. It's been a part of life that we can gratify whatever we need as quickly as possible. Now, in our modern generation, we can do that pretty easily because of technology, but that's really not something that is different over the years and thousands of years of life of people. You have to understand that people have always been trying to satisfy themselves and do what they want and enjoy what they want, how they want, when they want, whatever they want. And there was this idea that if you were to hold back from certain things, be patient with it, wait on it, take the long road about it, that it was actually a better part of life. A word we might hear about it, especially in churches, is that if you were to abstain from it, to keep away from something. We hear about that often. There's actually a philosopher named Plato that used to talk about this. He would take people out to the graveyard. Isn't that a great place to learn a lesson? He'd take them out to the graveyard, where I guess in those days you could still see the dead bodies there waiting to be buried, or they display them for a while, then they bury them, and he would give them a lesson. And the lesson that he would talk to them was that their bodies were stuck here because they spent too much time indulging every pleasure that they wanted to here on this earth. They never had any way to abstain from anything, thus their bodies were stuck here, and the gods had no way to take them up, because they spent all of their wants and desire here. Now that was a very philosophical way of life. It had nothing to do with God or Jesus Christ, the Savior, but it was an idea of the time that we could, as human beings, abstain from certain things. We could, as human beings, do good things and then earn a better life with the gods. You see, when we read Scripture, there's sometimes that we tend to confuse those things. What we're doing here on this earth does matter in the next life, but what we're doing here on this earth is not earning us the next life. Where Plato would have been saying what we do here on this earth earns us the next life. So as we approach these scriptures, we walk through 1 Peter, you have to understand that he, as he writes this, is literally going against the modern thought of the day. Do what pleases you, take care of what pleases you, and you can take care of yourself. Or do good things, be a good person, and you will end up in a good place. And Peter's saying something completely different. As you remember, he actually says, you, as believers in Jesus Christ, who died for your sins, whose blood was shed for you, you already belong to a different place. And he gave you a title. He said, you're elect exiles. You're sojourners. You're refugees here on this earth. And he spent 12 verses, just one sentence in the original, just wrapping up an encouragement to you in Jesus Christ and who you are, how we are to be, and how we live with this living hope through any suffering that comes through this world. And as he moves through that, and he goes through all of this, he drives to this point here in chapter 2, in verse 11. In chapter 2, verse 11, he takes all of these thoughts, these grand theological thoughts he's been pushing through and moving into our hearts, and begins to nail some practical nails into them. And I think it's the practicality of Peter that gets us, but it's also the practicality of Peter that grates against us. He starts this way, and I think it's a beautiful turn. In chapter 2, verse 11, he says, Beloved. That there is something very friendly, very loving about being called beloved. There's a term of care, of shepherding that comes as Peter writes this. He doesn't write it to his little children, to my people, beloved. There's this, how do I say, sometimes when the parent says the very nice words to the child first, because the instructions are about to come. Have you heard that before? Have you done that one before? Beloved, do these things. Exactly what's happening. Beloved, I urge you. And the word here has a sense of immediate urgency. This almost emergency status. As sojourners and exiles. Remember, we're repeating that theme over and over again. You are not of this world. You do not belong to this world. You belong to the heavenly world. You are already belonging to Christ. And you're walking this earth as a foreigner. As foreigners, as exiles, you are to abstain from the passions of the flesh which war against your soul. He's going to go two directions here. He's going to give you the negative, and then he's going to give you the positive. And the first is the negative, to abstain, to hold back from, to keep away from these things. And these are things that he's mentioned already before. He mentioned them at the beginning of chapter 2, to put away malice and deceit and hypocrisy and envy and slander. These are what he calls passions of the flesh. He says they wage war against your soul. And that's one of those things that I think we forget. That every day that we wake up, there is this internal battle that sits inside of us. Am I going to live for myself, as my own God, taking care of myself, or am I going to live as God chooses and ordains me to live? And sometimes living for yourself looks pretty good. But we have to hold off certain things. There is a battle for our soul every day. A battle for you, whether you are going to be in control of everything because you're your own little God and you want to be sovereign to your own world and have control of all the things in your world, or whether you're going to let God control all the things in your world. And sometimes we confuse them very much. He uses the terms of malice and deceit and hypocrisy and envy and slander. And those terms go all over the board in our world, from things that we say, to things that we do, to the thoughts and very attitudes in our heart. Because the outside ones we can control. We say, okay, I can control not behaving a certain way to people. But when it starts talking about envy, when it starts talking about deceit, it starts getting into the very heart of who we are. The things that we do that people don't hear and see, and the attitudes that we have. And he's saying we need to be careful and watch out that there is a literal war going on for you every day. And so as sojourners, as foreigners in this world, we need to be aware of that. On the positive side, he wants us to keep on with something else. In verse 12 he says this, keep your conduct among the Gentiles honorable, so that when they speak against you as evildoers, they may see your good deeds and glorify God on the day of visitation. Now, in other words, he says, do good works. Do the right things. And this is where it can get very confusing in the life of a believer, and as we share with people, we say Christians are supposed to do good things, but we can confuse that and say the good things get us to the good place. And this is the other way around. Here we're saying we are doing the good things because we are not belonging to this world. We're doing them to honor God, our Lord, our Savior, in Jesus Christ. We do them to follow Him. Keep your conduct among the Gentiles honorable. In chapter 1, he told you to be holy, as God is holy. And all over 1 Peter, you can find about 7 other references about your behavior being upright, righteous, holy. You find it all over 1 Peter. You find it all over the writings of Paul. Your behavior actually matters. The works that you do, the things that you do, they are important to life. As a matter of fact, in Ephesians, when Paul writes, know that you've been saved by grace through faith so that no man can boast, what does he say after that? That you've been prepared to do the works that God has for you. There are things that we must be doing. When Paul writes to Titus, he mentions 3 or 4 times about the good work that we as believers should be known for. And see, it is in that when people come against you, when they speak against you, or they want to put you down, or they want to, throw you under the bus, it'll be a lot harder when you're known for doing the things that are godly. Doing the good works, working with integrity, working in a way that no one else will because they want to cut corners and you won't. And they say, man, you work slow, but guess what? I get it done. Not only do I get it done, I'm not cutting the corners. I'm doing this to honor God. Look at what he says. All of this does what? It glorifies God. Now, wouldn't that be a beautiful thing to know that something you are doing is literally going to glorify the name of your Lord and Savior? I mean, I would love to know that the next thing I'm going to do is to glorify God. And here Peter says, you want to do that? Do the right things. No matter what the world around you is doing. And as Peter drives through this, he then drives into the practical ways of life for people in the church. And he's going to talk about people in the church amongst the political world. He's going to talk people in the church amongst the work world. And he's going to talk about people in the church amongst the marriage world. And he lays this out. These pairings come often in Peter's writings, in Paul's writings, and also in the philosophical writings that were non-Christian at the time. They did it in pairs often. Your relationship with the government, your relationship slave to worker, slave to master, or as we would say, in work, your relationship in marriage, and other ones did your relationship children to parents. And these twos, they went in twos all the time, went often. But Peter begins it this way. Be subject for the Lord's sake to every human institution. That's verse 13. I want you to think through this. This is the part where Peter, really, I don't like Peter at this point. He's not fun. Okay, be subject is a nice way to say it. You may have heard the word submit yourself. Put yourself under, be submissive to every human institution. Now, Peter's talking about government, power structure, authority that are around us. Now, if there is any time to talk about does the church need to be submissive to government, this is a great time to talk about it. Politically, our world is crazy. Some things that are going on in politics and different laws are being passed this past week. You go, whoa, wait a minute, I have to be subject, be submissive to all of this? And think of our own nation's history. Our nation is born out of civil disobedience. I mean, we were not submissive to the king. Then we started a revolution. And then within our own nation, there were people that were not submissive to the segregation of blacks and whites. And sadly, the church went along with some of the evil parts of that, and happily, the church also encouraged the civil disobedience parts of that. I mean, listen to this quote here. It's from Martin Luther King Jr. This he wrote as part of his letter. If you ever have a chance to read his letter that he wrote from a jail in Birmingham, it is 4 pages long. It is quite a letter. But he writes this letter because he saw that the very laws were unjust. And he wants people to know why he did what he did, and he ended up in jail. But I want you to understand, nowhere in this letter, and nowhere in Paul's writing or in Peter's writing, when we hear about them also being in jail, do they say, come break me out, get me out of here. See, even in their civil disobedience, they're being subject to the institution, the law, to put them in jail. They're in this place. But listen to what MLK says here. He says, wherever the early Christians entered the town, the power structure got disturbed and immediately sought to convict them for being disturbers of the peace and outside its agitators. But they went on with conviction and that they were a colony of heaven and had to obey God rather than man. They were small in number, but big in commitment. They were too God intoxicated to be astronomically intimidated. They brought an end to such ancient evils as infanticide and gladiatorial contests. Things are different now. The contemporary church is so often weak, ineffectual voice with an uncertain sound. It is so often the arch supporter of the status quo. Far from being disturbed by the presence of the church, the power structure of the average community is consoled by the church's silence and often vocal sanction of things as they are. Now, if there's any call to civil disobedience, Martin Luther King Jr. knew how to write that call. And you would say that was right. And you could even say it was biblical. You see it all over the scriptures. You see Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego bow before God. What do they say? We're not going to bow, we'll stand. We're going to throw you in the fire. Civil disobedience. And they tell Daniel not to pray. What does Daniel do? He prays anyway. And it's okay. Civil disobedience. Peter, who's writing this very letter, was thrown in jail for preaching the good news of Jesus Christ. They told him not to. But what did he say? You cannot stop us from preaching the good news of Jesus Christ. If there's anything that says civil disobedience is something that the church has the right to do, you can find it all over Scripture. But Peter does not say that here. That is not his point. You see, Peter's talking about a day in, day out life that we must live in our conduct every single day. Are there moments, are there times in history where we have to do things? Are there times over all of history where we've seen people had to do things? Like Martin Luther King Jr., like Dietrich Bonhoeffer, like other people had to do things? Are there times that the church was silent when it shouldn't have been? Yeah, there are. But we're looking at Peter. So I don't want us to get tempted to go, that submission thing sounds great, but I see biblically I don't have to do it everywhere. Look at what he said, because it is difficult. And this is what he says. Be subject, be submissive, be underneath, and you have to understand this is in your heart. You know, there is submission and then there is submissiveness. There is, you tell a kid, you need to stop and go clean your room, and they go stomping off the room. I'm going to go clean my room, that was here. That is claim, that's obedience, that's not submissiveness. You need to stop and clean your room. Okay, I'll go clean my room. I'd rather go, yeah, I'll do it. And they go clean their room. That's submissiveness and obedience. Here we're being told to be submissive under every human institution, whether it be to the emperor as supreme. Who was the emperor as supreme in Peter's time? His name was Nero. He led one of the largest attacks against Christians of his time. Nero would light them on poles and light them on fire as lampstands in his garden. This is the man that Peter is saying we need to be submissive under. Don't forget Pilate, who took Jesus from Peter and hung him on a cross. Don't forget Felix, who took Paul and executed him. These are the type of people politically that Peter is speaking about, who literally are attacking believers in Jesus Christ and literally are burning them, putting them on crosses, and killing them for the sake of whatever they want, because they don't like what they're saying. So wherever you stand politically, you can't come against that. And even if you said, they're attacking us, they were attacking them too. And what does Peter say? Be subject to them. I don't like that. I don't have to like that, but the Bible states that. And Peter states it for a purpose. Look at what he says. Whether it be emperor as supreme, in verse 14, or to governors as sent by him to punish those who do evil, praise those who do good. Verse 15, here's the reason. For this is the will of God, that by doing good you should put to silence the ignorance of foolish people. I want you to think about that for a moment. The greatest Christian apologetic, the greatest way that you have to tell people you believe in Jesus Christ, and you believe God is King and God is sovereign, and that He is in control, and He is giving you the peace in this world, is to be submissive in this world. Think through that. Jesus Christ Himself could have called angels down and stopped any time He wanted, and He was submissive to the authorities of this world. Unto death. He says, by your goodness, by your very good deeds, in what you do in, think of the attitude and the words and the things that you say about government today. Is it a submissive attitude and words and things that we say? Is it a type of thing that would give witness to others that God alone is King and God alone gets glory? Or is it one of those things where I did a quick internet search and found lots of interesting pictures of angry Christians? What people think of Christians, and it comes with quite some list. Things I probably can't even share up here, because they're willing to do whatever it takes. They're willing to go beyond even the idea of civil disobedience. They're willing to destroy people, to shame people. They're willing to destroy property. They're willing to hurt people. They're willing to go way beyond anything. That cannot be done in the name of God. It's not possible. This is what he says in verse 16. If this is the will of God, and this is going to put silence to them, in verse 16 he says, you live as people who are free. And I think it is such a beautiful tension that I must be submissive, but in that submissiveness, I know I am completely and totally free in Jesus Christ. You see, I can be free. I can live in this world, and I know that God is sovereignly in control of everything. Live as people who are free, not using your freedom as a cover-up for evil, but living as servants of God. As servants of God, you've been given the freedom to obey. The freedom to obey what God has called you to do. And that here in this world, as we do as it said at the beginning, abstain and wage that war against us and keep in with good conduct that we're doing, in a political world, in the world of our nation, our state, our county, our government, our authorities around us, we live in a submissive state. Does that mean that there won't be times that there are, special instances where you have to go against the world? Of course there are. Peter ended up in jail. Paul ended up in jail. All of these other people ended up in jail because there were times for that. But if you see what Peter's talking about here, he's talking about a daily attitude and living conduct that we have. And too often as believers, especially here in our American culture, we have this daily attitude as believers. We can do as we want, say as we want, because we are free to say these things about these institutions and these people in this manner. And he's saying, no, we're free to be under the obedience of God who places us under these human authorities. And so he lines it up in this step ladder type of way. Verse 17, he says, first, honor everyone. Treat everyone with respect. Everyone. And I want you to think through all the people groups that you see either on TV or on the internet or at work or at school or wherever you are. What are all the people groups that you see? Whether they're ethnic or education, whatever it is, or political groups. Think through every single one of them. Have you been dishonoring, disrespectful with your words or thoughts or attitudes to any of them? I already know the answer is yes, we have, because we all messed up. Okay? Here he says, that is our duty, is to honor everyone. No matter how different they look, no matter how different they think about God and Jesus Christ as Savior, no matter how different they think about life and truth, we must be in this conduct where we honor them. That's a submissive state, a hard state to be in. But notice, as I'm doing that, I'm submitting to God. When I honor them, I look at them and I go, you are created in the image of God, and so am I. You are broken, and so am I. You are not rescued, but I am. Now I want to honor and respect you because I want you to be rescued. Our very words and actions need to treat people that way. Think of the people that are great against you. Maybe it's a family member, or maybe it's a coworker, or who knows who it is. But if I said think of the people that are great against you, there's probably 2 or 3 people that popped in mind. There's 2 or 3 popped in my mind just now. Not going to name them. Okay? But think of them. Are you honoring them? Part of honoring them is, are you praying for them? Have you spent time going to the Lord for their sake? Not that you wish they would stop being so. God, please fix them. I've done this prayer before. God, please fix them because it's so difficult for me. Then what a selfish prayer, isn't it? Think about that. That's not honoring them. That's helping me out. How about, Lord, help them? I don't know what it is. Help them. Bless them. Lord, I don't want to bless them, but I know I'm supposed to ask you to bless them. That's honoring people. Political leaders, have you prayed for them recently? Since last Sunday, how often have you prayed for the political leaders in our nation, in our state, in our county? I don't care which side of the spectrum they're on and you're on. Have you prayed for them? Have you prayed that God would move them and help them lead our nation? Actually, it's God's nation. And actually, there's no real nation that is a Christian nation anyway. That's a term that makes no sense. There's no Christian nation. Because that would assume that all Christians belong in that one place. All Christians belong in heaven. That's why we're foreigners in this world. Remember, elect exiles? So he's calling you to honor everyone. Then he moves forward. This is how we glorify God. We honor everyone. Then we love the brotherhood. You look around this room, or wherever a body of believers are, it's called the brotherhood, the family of believers. Do you love each other? There's a difference between honoring and loving. Loving goes into the deeper level of life. This deeper level of getting to know you, of bringing God's word to one another, and loving each other through our differences. Because just if I scan the room, there's so many unique people in here, I'm surprised we all even get along. Because we're unique. But it is the love of God that brings us together. We have to allow that love to shine as we move forward. So we love the brotherhood. But these are problems that came across every church since the church began. I mean, Paul writes to certain churches and tells people, tell these two ladies to stop bickering with each other. That's not loving the brotherhood. So it's not a new thing, but there's a reason Peter says, love the brotherhood. You want to glorify God. You want to be submissive in all these things and shine his light to the world. Honor everyone, love the brotherhood, and fear God. The problem there was so many people in Peter's world, in a time of Nero, when the oppressiveness of the very government was coming down on your people, feared the emperor, not God. They feared the consequence of the cross, of the burning, of their business being lost, or whatever it was. They didn't fear God. They didn't fear and respect and live in awe and wonder of their Creator. And so the levels of honor everyone, love the brotherhood, and fear God. Fear God lands up at the mountaintop. For that is what drives all that we do. Because I live in such awe and respect and fear of God, I can be in a country that seems to be way far off from God. Because it's not God's country. God is making this country. It's called heaven, the new heaven and new earth. He's gathering his people, what's called believers, from every corner, every nation, every ethnicity. There are no borders for that. God is driving them all together, and he will call them to himself. He, as he has said, will literally rise up nations and cause them to fall. He will literally rise up leaders and cause them to fall. And if you read through the prophets, there are times he rises up nations that come and destroy things because he's commanded them to destroy things. Living in those times, you think, what in the world? There's an evil nation out there. And God is saying, I'm using it for my purpose. I'm doing this. And that's the person I want to live in awe and respect of. Then I can freely go submissively wherever I need to. So as he goes through this lap, and he drops us all the way back down to honor again. And he says, honor the emperor. Just to bring that all the way back to the close, just honor the emperor. Honor the one who is literally oppressing you at this moment, he says to them. You want to glorify God? You want to live in a manner that shows that we glorify God, whether it be the things you abstain from or the good works that you do? You want to truly glorify God this week. Honor everyone. Love each other. And fear God. Nothing else will work. Because we're going to fail in those if we try to do it a different way. Honor everyone. Think through that. Who is it this week that you need to change that attitude with? Who are the people you need to pray for this week that grade against you? How do we show love to each other this week? In what ways do we need to fear God that we haven't been? We've been so afraid of the direction of the nation or what's happening at work, what's happening in our family, that we forget who's in control of it all. And our fear has been in the wrong place. It's been on the situation or the things that are happening, and not on the Creator Himself. So as you go through this week, I pray that you would glorify God by honoring all people, loving each other, and fearing God. Should we please pray? Heavenly Father, I thank you for this day. I thank you for your word, which admittedly, Lord, sometimes, at least today, is not always fun for me to read. The word submit, Lord, is not something I like to hear, I like to do, but you have called us to submit. You who submitted yourself to leave heaven, to walk this earth, and be tied to walking, to be tied to humanity. And you who submitted yourself to every human institution while you were here, including death on a cross. Lord, help us understand how to live that way. To live as Christ did, honoring all people, loving the brotherhood, and above all, fearing His Father. Teach us to do that, Lord. Move in our hearts to see you, even as we think things are falling apart around us. To fear you, and to live with that attitude in all that we do. To you, Lord, be all honor and glory. In your name.